The midterms are now less than 3 months away, and there are some new signs that President Trump might be in panic mode as voter anger intensifies. There's new polling that shows that the president is underwater on a number of key issues, for example, prices and inflation, the economy. He's even losing steam on immigration and border security, which are typically signature pieces of his agenda. But Trump says that this is not his fault.
Donald Trump's poll numbers are falling. And now, even Republicans are openly warning that the GOP could be heading toward a serious midterm reckoning. In this clip, the panel debates Trump's biggest problems, from the economy and cost of living to immigration, crime, and the war in Iran, and whether blaming Democrats or the media can actually fix what voters are telling them. Now, if you're new here, I'm Bradley Hostin, and this is The Bradley Hostin Show. If you enjoy honest political commentary, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
The midterms are now less than 3 months away, and there are some new signs that President Trump might be in panic mode as voter anger intensifies. There's new polling that shows that the president is underwater on a number of key issues, for example, prices and inflation, the economy. He's even losing steam on immigration and border security, which are typically signature pieces of his agenda. But Trump says that this is not his fault.
I inherited a mess in so many ways. The border, which I solved very quickly. I inherited so many different problems that this was a bad administration. This was an incompetent administration. But I inherited high prices. And then from the first day, they started using the word affordability. They looked at me, affordability, it was a new word. Nobody ever heard the word.
And it's not just his predecessor. The president is once again throwing shade at the very party that he leads. Today, Trump shared a rant against Republicans from a conservative influencer who wrote, "I don't think the Republicans, the GOP, fully grasp how badly they're effing up right now." It continues with a warning that the party might be sleepwalking toward a midterm reckoning. But Trump might have just found a winning solution to this, and that is to turn the spotlight right back on himself. Because just a minute later, he reposted a list of things that he considers to be his biggest accomplishments. Caroline, the Atlantic is reporting that Trump's advisors told him that the poor polling reflects the fact that the voting public still doesn't know many of his accomplishments. So he suggested that the ad makers mine his own on-camera statements as building blocks. And he says, go look at the clips to make the ads. Is that the right strategy here?
Well, the White House definitely needs to get new talking points. You know, when the answer to everything is Iran can't have a nuclear weapon and short-term pain for long-term gain, people aren't believing the talking points anymore. So you're going to have to get new material. But then second to that, the administration does need to do a better job of getting the accomplishments out there. And there are many. There's Trump accounts. There's record low fentanyl deaths. There's been zero border crossings the last 15 months. Under Biden, it was 5,000 a day in the El Paso sector. They have to know that they're up against a biased media. I mean, respectfully, this network covered Natalie Harp all last week. I didn't hear any word about the young mother in Virginia who was killed by an illegal immigrant from El Salvador. Thank you for having me on so that I can tell people about that. But the admin has to realize, yes, they're up against a biased media. So use the other tools at your disposal that we used very successfully in 2024. Go talk to the podcast audience. Use social media. I'm a big believer that if you don't go talk to people, they will assume the worst about you. It's why I appreciate coming on here. And when we were talking to people, we were going up in the polls.
What about the things that he's actually doing? Because there are also things he's still doing right now that are not helping. I mean, there's the tariffs. The whole thing that he did with beef last week, which infuriated his own base. I mean, he's got some problems that are actually within his control, not just talking points, but things he can actually do.
Yeah, the talking points aren't the problem. This presidency up until this point has been a failure. He was elected because of things like affordability, although he doesn't believe that word existed prior to him being elected this go around. But gas prices are still high, drug prices are still high, housing prices are still high, grocery prices are still high. We're now at month 6 in a war in Iran that he said he was going to bomb his way out of. People aren't seeing an end result of that, so gas prices are going up, fertilizers going up. So by every metric, this White House has been a failure. But what he did last week was he went on a 30-minute rant showing people the improvements he was making to the White House with gold ornaments in Washington, D.C. He's a big-time developer, so that's what he's spending his time and energy on. We have $1 billion ballroom we're spending money on that taxpayers are footing the bill on. And so, look, I understand that sometimes, you have a bad message or you have a bad messenger. But there also is a point in time, you're about to see candidates begin to do this right now. When your president's a failure, you cut bait and run. And that's what Republicans are starting to do around the country.
But would you describe a border where there's been 0 border crossings for 15 months as a failure? Because I don't define that as a failure. I have my criticisms, but I don't define that as a failure.
I would.
Is that a failure?
How about this? No, that's not a failure. And
so that's not a failure.
The failure actually was Democrats. The failure actually was Democrats when we were running for re-election, acting as if the border and crime was not a real issue. Right. When people, particularly in Texas and other places, because we were naive. And we
so this actually has been a success.
But the reason that the president was elected was because people were having issues with their pocketbook. And so let me tell you what the failure is. Let me tell you what the failure is.
Well, we also glad that border is closed.
So let me outline the failures of immigration just briefly. The failures of immigration are when we see ICE ripping parents away from children, when we have people, Americans, dead in the street because of violence.
This is what I'm talking about with the biased media. Because you're not going to talk about the young mom killed in Virginia.
But I'm also telling you that the failures. I'm also telling you that the failures are. Are you going to articulate? First of all, everybody around the table, including Democrats, Barack Obama actually did it well. Everybody says that if you're illegal in this country, you commit a crime, you should be deported.
There's a lot of Democrat candidates
not everybody says that.
That is not true.
That's been the policy.
My member of Congress is against all deportations.
One second, really quickly, because I want to highlight. I want to go back to the failures. I want to go back to the failures because you did not articulate or understand or comprehend the failures of this administration. The reason he got elected, the reason he got elected is because prices are high.
Not just that, it was border security too.
Listen, you can't beat the same drum. How about this? Has he done anything about affordability? The answer is no.
Hold on a second.
Well, that's also just not
let me
true.
just make this point because I think it's important to just note that, the president closed the border. And he does get some credit for that, although it's interesting to see that he's still underwater even on the border security issue. And it could just be because it's not as high on Americans' list anymore. Sometimes you're a victim of your success. Yeah. But the number one issue for Americans is cost of living. He is underwater by 48 points on that issue. Jobs in the economy, underwater, 27 points. Immigration. So that's probably capturing some of what Bakari's talking about, how it's being managed inside the United States. He's underwater by 15 points. Crime and public safety, underwater by 13 points. So there's clear evidence here that Americans think he is not handling anything.
But I think his point, and part of it, is getting in front of people and talking about his successes. So, for example, if crime, he's underwater, we have record low crime rates right now, violent crime rates. That has gone down. If he's
in democratic cities also.
Yes, as a direct result of policies that the Democrats introduced and then had to walk back, like defunding the police.
That is
100%
I'm saying the crime is down in democratic cities.
It's down across the country at the same time that we actually have a president who's now focused on that issue, and it's tied directly to immigration as well.
You're telling me Donald Trump is the reason that crime in Baltimore and Little Rock
when you deport violent criminals from your country, the violent crime rate goes down.
So
that is how it works. Yes.
Did crime go up?
That is exactly how it works.
Did crime go up because of Democrats?
No.
Okay, so crime going up in Democrat cities is not a direct result.
Do you know why crime? Do you know why crime is going down?
I absolutely do know why crime is going down.
Crime is going down because
crime
is going down in places like Gary, Indiana, because Eddie Melton, the mayor there, or Baltimore because of the mayor there and Brandon Scott. Or Randall Woofin or Andre Dickens. Crime is going because they're taking a holistic approach to actually funding things like midnight basketball, after school programs. They're actually pouring money into primary school education.
They weren't being funded before?
No, they weren't. Not to this rate. So that's why you have 50
What happens when you defund police?
So
Does that lead to more crime?
When did they defund the police?
I think that this conversation respectfully, I think this conversation is actually kind of missing the point, and maybe this is why Republicans are in kind of a bad way, is that you can't tell Americans, don't worry about that economic issue. That shouldn't be as important to you. Let me just tell you about this other thing over here. And as important as crime is, their priorities are their priorities, and you can't gaslight them into thinking that they should care about things that are not as high on their list as the economy.
Yes, Caroline and Jason both talked about immigration and crime, and those are important issues, but not this year. It's not what voters want to hear about. Like, you go to a hip-hop concert and start playing disco. That's not going to land very well. Okay, Trump is hated in this country. It's just true. He's at an all-time low, and The Economist went through state by state. Okay, the president carried Michigan. He's now 26 points underwater there. He carried Ohio by 12. He's underwater by 24. He's 30 points underwater in Georgia. He's 22 points underwater in my beloved Texas. This country wants a brake pedal on Trump because of cost of living. Right. And anybody's talking about Trump on the Republican side, anybody's advertising Trump on the Republican side is going to lose. If the Democrats had the money, we'd buy him another plane. Because apparently the one he got from Qatar is broken or something. We buy him another plane on the promise he would only campaign in swing states. Because he's about as popular as that cyclospora lettuce that gives you exploding diarrhea. There's nobody lining up to buy that crap.
Well, he doesn't believe it.
Yeah, but he's an idiot.
Well, Geraldo, do you remember this? This is from a Punch Bowl interview a couple weeks ago. Listen.
If I don't run, will those people go out and vote? And that's the one thing I can't tell. I'm going to ask them to. The question is, will they vote? Because a lot of them are very angry at Republicans, to be honest with you. They're
Why is that?
I don't know. I mean, they're angry at Republicans, but they're not angry at me.
Interesting thing. Why?
They're not angry at me, but they are angry at Republicans.
He's extremely frustrated.
Yeah, as I often ask, what is going on?
He can't get the prices down. He can't win the damn war. He can't make China behave. He can't even make Canada behave. Toe the line and tariffs and so forth. So he feels like a Hall of Fame coach who all of a sudden his team is lousy and he blames the team rather than himself. I really do believe that he's in a very tough spot right now.
So honestly, I think the biggest takeaway from that entire discussion is that Trump's biggest problem right now isn't the media. It's the cost of living. You can talk about immigration. You can talk about crime. You can talk about the border. But if Americans are struggling with groceries, housing, gas, and healthcare, that's what they're going to judge the president on. And that's why the polling numbers are so important. You can argue about whether Trump deserves credit for certain accomplishments, but if voters don't feel those accomplishments in their own pockets, they're not going to care. What also stood out to me was the constant attempt to blame Democrats for problems that voters are currently blaming Trump for. At some point, you have to take responsibility. Donald Trump is the president now. He can't continue campaigning against Joe Biden forever, and the war in Iran makes this even worse. If Trump promised Americans that he could solve these problems quickly, but months later there's still no clear end in sight, then voters have every right to ask what exactly they're getting for all of this. That's why I think the midterms could become a very serious problem for Republicans. You can't tell people the economy is doing great when they don't feel it. Let me know your guys' thoughts down in the comment section below. Do you think Trump's biggest problem is the economy and cost of living? Or do you think Republicans can turn things around before the midterms? As usual, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more news commentaries. I'll see you guys in the next one.